Okay, rail and road infrastructure, they've always been considered pivotal for a country's economic prosperity. There's another infrastructure that has joined the group, which is ICT. According to a report published by OICCI that I was reading just the other day, it talks about the benefits of creating a digital Pakistan. And it says that if we are to create a digital Pakistan, or if we do create a digital Pakistan, then potentially it can benefit Pakistan in three ways. It can increase access to digital literacy, so reduce inequality. It can contribute towards accelerated economic growth. And finally, it can also facilitate smart government. Now, I'm not an expert, but fortunately, we have a team of experts here who will talk to you more on the subject. With that, I would like to invite the next panel to the stage. The panelists include Dr. Arslan Khalid, focal person to Prime Minister on digital media. Asif Peer, CEO Systems Limited and Tech Vista Systems, UAE, and he's also a member of Prime Minister's Task Force on IT and Telecom. Navid Qazi, Regional Leader Web, Global and Emerging Providers, Asia Pacific, Japan, and China, CISCO. I know we've just come back from lunch, but I think all the panelists deserve a big round of applause as they walk onto the stage. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next one is Rizwan Mustafa Mir, CEO USF, Universal Service Fund. And the session will be moderated by Ghazanfar Ali, Country General Manager, Pakistan and Afghanistan for IBM. This is a 45-minute long session, and we will have a Q&A within those 45 minutes towards the end. With that, ladies and gentlemen, over to the panel. Thank you.
So, thank you, gentlemen, for joining on the stage. I think digital is one topic which appears now in every conference, and this is the most buzzword and most used word. So, no conference happens without the word digital, innovation, transformation, or startups. So what we decided today as in this panel that we will, we started the day with an excellent speech by Rashid Saab and saying, let's focus more on what we can do rather than more of thinking, right? So what we decided today that today's panel discussion we will have around on the areas that what we can do and what are the execution steps. So it's more on what and how rather than why. I think we all know the digital opportunity for Pakistan is humongous. Digital economy, whether you talk about digital economy, whether you talk about social services, whether you talk about public service delivery, or whether you talk about innovation and future value creation from Pakistan, there is a ton of data available which we all know by now. Even a 13-year-old can tell a good story on what disruption is and digital transformation is. So I will start first with Rizwan, with you on, because USF has played an important role in the baseline innovation infrastructure for Pakistan. The recent work of getting access, which is the baseline or the foundation of digital connectivity, there USF has done a great job. So my question to you would be that in USF view and in your view, what is the opportunity in front of us? What are the challenges? And how we can make an impactful intervention, especially in the social sector area, to take Pakistan to the next level on digital front.
Thank you for that. Thanks for listening to this panel. My name is Rizwan Mir. I'm heading the Universal Service Fund in Pakistan, which has a charter of removing the digital divide in our country. So I'll take a couple of minutes and just give you my view on what digital transformation really means. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1985, there was a company called Blockbuster. It was one of the most popular brands. Every weekend, people would go to that store and rent videos. Just in late fees, when people don't return videos on time, that company would incur you a fine and their fines were $1 billion, just the fine. At that time, nobody could imagine that about 20 years later, something called Netflix will emerge, and within 5 years would eliminate that company. That actually, the example I gave, what I'm trying to bring home is there is a tremendous push globally on digital transformation. And the reason is whether it's a business, whether it's a small and medium enterprise, whether it's a public sector organization, or whether it's a country and all the government and how it's done in a country, everybody is scared because it is no longer an option to not be digitally transformed. If you don't do it, you will be the next blockbuster. Whether you're a government, whether you're a country, or whether you're a public or private organization. So that's why there's a significant market push, and across the sectors, everybody is contemplating how they can do this digital transformation successfully. Second thing, I mean, the need is obviously clear. I don't think we need to debate it. I think we do need to understand it's urgent and it's now. We can't play around with it. So how do you go about making that digital transformation is the next question. So if you look at the history of transformation, especially in the public and social sector organizations, the private enterprises are a little more disciplined with fewer constraints. But if you look at the history of transformation in the public sector, one has to realize that digital transformation is actually composed of 3 different dimensions. First one is people and organization. Second is processes, and third is technology. So technology is actually at the bottom. It's really about the people and organization. So the change has to come from the top, has to be explained to the major stakeholders, and then only then they will change the processes to map and make them programmable and adaptable to a digital technology. The disconnect in our digital transformation and the projects that have failed is essentially the fact that people and organizations have not been brought on board with the need of transformation. We have a shiny technology, we have an ERP system, we put it in an office, nobody uses it. So it is extremely essential that we understand that the change that is needed with the advent of digitalization, digital transformation has to happen at an organizational level. Without it, every transformation will fail. Now, taking a step deeper, looking into what Universal Service Fund is doing or what we see as an opportunity in the social enterprise in Pakistan, technology is a shortcut to all the development goals that any government has. Let's give you a success story. Let's take the case of Nadra in Pakistan. Started in early 2000, this organization did something really amazing. And part of the reason was there was stakeholder ownership from the very top. They were given the mandate, they were given the power and the resources. And imagine now that with your Nadra ID, it's a digital ID, so we actually have taken a big step forward. Every citizen of Pakistan has a digital ID. It's not a small accomplishment. But we just need to build on top of that. Using that digital ID, you can have a bank account, electronic bank account open in less than a minute. There are companies today that will do that. There are new companies coming that can offer you health insurance. There are new certification courses where you can digitally learn and get certified electronically. So the question was, what's the opportunity? The biggest opportunity we have today is, I would put them on 3 dimensions: e-health, e-learning, and absolutely e-finance. We can solve these 3 challenges very at scale in a low cost manner, at a very low cost, using the digital solution. However, the challenge we have is still we have masses of population that are not connected through broadband. There's good voice connectivity in our country, but we're still lacking broadband. Without broadband, you cannot build a digital future. We also have a challenge in terms of general adoption of digital lifestyle. Our people take a while to adopt to the new ways of doing things. And the third challenge obviously continues to be sustained policy and program. It is working in the public sector. I haven't previously worked in the private sector. Now, looking at the constraints that are thrown at people who work in the government or public sector, it's not a mean task. to design a policy that will please all the stakeholders, policy on licensing. We're saying there's some challenges there. How do you come up with a policy for spectrum sharing, for right of way on fiber, for ensuring broadband to each and every citizen of Pakistan? So I think there's a big challenge and a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure broadband is affordable across the country. There is e-services that are being launched so that people can make use of these tools and make a digital Pakistan happen. I have some numbers to share, but I'll save it for the next part of the conversation and hand it back in the meantime.
Thank you, Rizwan. So that brings us to the next one, which is public sector service delivery. And what we have seen around the globe is the role of government is changing. Instead of being the service provider, they are becoming a platform. And the new shape of the government, or the digital government, is government as a platform service, where you act as a platform to connect the suppliers and the people who need different kind of services. So if you look into the problems which we have, and this is the problem of many developing countries, that your problem grow faster than your resources, and the government resources don't grow as fast. So you cannot fulfill the need of education, the need of healthcare, the need of public service delivery through government only resources. So you need to create platforms where, first of all, the government services are digitized and offered in more citizen-centric way. And the second thing is that many companies or many departments within the government collaborate to create a service which is relevant to the customer. So, Asif, I think systems is a jewel of our local industry in terms of what you have built over the decades in local IT capability, your experience of working with the government, and your experience of digitizing the government. So what is the ground reality of our digitization now in the government, and what is the potential? So that's where I think you can be the best guy in the whole conference to tell, because systems have worked extensively in digitizing many parts of government now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ghazanfar. It's a great question, and I think Rizwan has shared already why and what we need to do in digital transformation. I think I will tell you very honestly and share my feedback. It's my opinion, my feedback. It's not like I cannot be made generic enough. But digitization is nothing but looking at the use cases around you. Whether you are in a public sector or a private sector, or any organization that you lead today or around you, you see a problem statement, you see a use case, and then you try to forget about the technology. When you think about digitization, I think people start thinking in complex world, that how would I automate that, how would I digitize it, and how would I convert that into some sort of digital transformation. It's not about that. It's about how you will solve the business problem, right? How would you address that use case by defining the process that will take this to, of course, once you solve the problem, then you need the technology behind it to make it digitally accessible. So to answer Ghazanfar's question, like where the government is today, I think, of course, I would say we have not started yet. We have very few institutions like NADRA and few others who has attempted and did something related to digital transformation and digitize the data and the records. But potential is huge and immense, because we have not started, in my view, yet at a masses or at a national scale even, right? Every organization where you go, you see the files on the table. You see the file with the, ribbon on there is a file, and then everybody is checking it. I think for digitization in Pakistan, what it requires, technology is not stopping. It's a mindset. The people sitting at the positions, do they understand what they want to do with digitization? Are they willing to take risk to open it up and being transparent and track their own performances? Because when you talk about digital transformation, what is going to happen? It is going to be transparent. It is going to be tracked. Somebody will monitor your performance. You can be monitored against your KPIs. So all of these things, when you talk about digital transformation at any public sector organization, there is a mindset, there is a block. until and unless we change that mindset, technology is not going to solve problem. So it's very important in our situation, HR is the issue. Wherever we go and whichever department we go, if you put the right people at the right place, they will think about it. They don't have to innovate too much, to be honest with you, for digital transformation, because we are living in an archaic world where everything is paper, nothing is being tracked, and there is no single window operation at most of the organization. You have to do one thing, it goes to one step, it goes to one department, and nothing is truly integrated. But if you look behind the scene, there is a data. NADRA provides you a lot of information. Say, for example, SECP provides you a lot of information. FBR provides. So what these people need to think, that how to integrate, how to solve the business problem, how to look at all the use cases that is around in their department. But in order for them to do that, they have to be very open and they have to be capable to take those decisions, and they just do not hide behind some department that if we make this decision and if it goes wrong, I will be accountable for it. In technology, in a startup or a technology, project fails as well. It's not like 100% of everything will be successful. But in reality, if we don't take the risk and hide behind certain accountability, nothing is going to change. So in my view, I have worked with a lot of public sector organizations. We have automated HEC. We have automated their 75 business processes. And again, there are very simple use cases like degree attestation. You all know that, like everyone needs to go through it. We have just solved their problem by looking at their manual process flow and how we can automate and eliminate the process. And I can give you tons of examples. Any department you go, it won't take more than 30 minutes for the guys like us to figure out what digital transformation that department needs. But again, as I said, until we are ready at a public sector to change the mindset and be knowledgeable about it, have the right people who are willing to take risk and not shy away from the accountability, we will succeed. Otherwise, we will keep talking. Nobody is stopping us, but I think we are not taking enough risk or enough steps to digitize Pakistan. I think you guys must be hearing it in all the conferences, but essentially the progress is not there where it should be. Yeah. That's my humble opinion.
And I think the other thing is that we talk about leapfrogging with technology. I think the biggest leapfrog we can do is in our thinking. If government doesn't have the HR of solving it, we can look into other models. There are open government models. There are open data models. Even the banking has gone open banking, right? Open APIs. So if you don't have the talent, then build a system where you can attract the talent to solve your problems. I think that's the fundamental mindset change which we need to bring. So that brings us to the next level, which is one of the things which has prevailed in our life is all this social media and digital media around us, right? Obviously, with increasing number of smartphones, increasing number of devices, information primarily flows through digital media now. And it has given rise to things like fake news, and fake news has become the biggest phenomena, and it has become the biggest threat for the information age in which we are living. There are technology solutions which are coming, for example, AI-based systems, which will see the biases of different systems which are flowing this information and stuff. But it will be very interesting to know, Dr. Arslan, that since you are the Prime Minister advisor on digital media, that how does government view the digital space in terms of information? Where do you see right now we stand? And what's the vision of the Prime Minister and this government that how we should take it to the next level?
The thing is that with this PTI government, we are the pioneers who started the social media concept in the politics back in 2008. I would just like to go back to my story, that from where I started. Like, my story started from my study room and a laptop. So it was just a blog site where I logged in and And the moment I logged in, I felt that, okay, I have a voice now. And 2 to 3 years later, when I joined the social media team of the political party, it gave me a sense of empowerment that, okay, now my voice means something. And finally, it has, at this time, it has come to the point that the same social media, the digital media, has given me a recognition. So we have we have gone through the whole 10 years. We have learned a lot about this social media, and also the advantages and what are the disadvantages. First of all, there are like 19% of the Pakistan population who has the internet access. Some people may argue that it's not 19% is not much, and maybe the mainstream media has much more penetration into the masses. But let me tell you that this 19% of the population is making more impact than the mainstream media penetration, and I explain you why. Uh, there are lots of corporate structure involved in the mainstream media, while on the social media, each and every individual, he feels that what he feels he can express. And many of us may not be that eloquent. Like we can't make those lengthy vlogs and do the speeches. But that doesn't stop us from thinking. That doesn't mean that that person don't have an idea that can change the world, or that person doesn't have an opinion. So for those people also, digital media has provided an opportunity that they can express themselves and they mean something. But with right now, the biggest danger to this whole thing is the concept of fake news. Um, I think the credibility of any medium, whether it's mainstream media or the digital media, is the credibility. If that goes down, the medium is going to die down. So the challenge for all of us, not only for the government, is to control this concept of fake news. For that, the government has decided to come up with act, the PMRA. It's Pakistan Media Regulatory Authority, and the digital media is also going to come under that. But even for that, what we are doing is that we have invited all the digital media publishers. We are not going to give a set of rules to the people that, okay, these are the rules, you have to follow these. What we have done is that we have invited them, we have handed over them a draft of that act, but we want them to make the changes in that thing. And the biggest thing and the biggest challenge is empowering the PTA. There is no other way to solve the issue of fake news until and unless the PTA can actually take action against the people who are spreading this. So these are actually the challenges, and there are a lot of other initiatives. Maybe I will explain in the second round what we can do.
So thank you very much, Dr. Arslan. I think we've covered now three spaces. First is the social enterprises. The second is the government itself. Then the digital media. I think the most important piece which comes at the end is the digital economy, the economic piece of, and what we have seen, World Economic Forum's report says that 70% of the new value created by 2025 will be through digital platforms, and it will be to the tune of $25 trillion. Right now, world's digital economy is around $5.2 trillion. And we had some numbers in the morning sessions. I think Salman was mentioning that our e-commerce is 1 billion and stuff. But the reality is the opportunity of digital economy is something where nobody can make the right guess as far as Pakistan is concerned. We have seen some crazy numbers. And that's my question to you, Navid, would be that, where are we stuck in digital economy? Why, despite of good connectivity, good consumers being on digital platforms, or at least in the network, and we have Nadra, which is there for last 10, 15 years. We have financial systems, which is very strong. We have telecom system, which is very, modern. But our digital economy, state of our digital economy has not seen that promising result so far. So, Navid.
So, thank you very much. First of all, if you look at the overall paradigm around digital economy and how connectivity enables that together with market forces, if we go back to the early part of this century, right, when Pakistan had deregulation, impact. You had new players investing into basic connectivity space, be those telecom or mobile service providers or internet connectivity. And you had proliferation of overall bandwidth access in certain pockets of the country. We were pretty much leading comparable economies in the region. But if you look at the current state of things, we are pretty significantly underinvested in this sector. So if we try to give ourselves self-satisfaction that in Pakistan our connectivity paradigm is really world-class and it can really support the kind of digital economy that we want to build, other things being the same, probably that's not true. So I think first of all there is a requirement to invest significantly in the access landscape in the country. So after the award of 3G and 4G licenses, at least on the mobile connectivity side, you are gradually getting there. But in terms of fixed connectivity that is actually required to enable some of these businesses, we probably have still a very significant challenge. And if you go outside some of the major cities, you don't really have many sources of supply for broadband connectivity. So that is just on the connectivity part itself. If you look at the overall digital economy value system, obviously government plays a big role in terms of enabling the infrastructure, and also creating the enabling environment where private sector can invest, and you also have the regulatory framework to support that. So I think there is quite a bit of work to do in that area, and probably it's a bit of a longish discussion, but the industry stakeholders need to come together between the government, the regulator and the private sector players to really make sure that we have the right environment to entice certain sectors of economy. If we look at the different sectors of economy that can benefit from this kind of intervention, again, we need to prioritize and develop a pseudo-national consensus on what are the areas that require the early investment in this area, whether it's banking, education, healthcare, public security, that's up for debate, because obviously we'll have a finite set of resources. And then if the government creates the right enabling environment, we can have a pool of investment coming from the private sector and also possibly cross-border, if it becomes a lucrative platform for people to invest and the ease of doing business is taken care of, then clearly Pakistan can investment in this space. But in the current scheme of things, it looks like a bit of a challenge. So for the past 20 years, we have been talking about the potential that our economy has to offer, and obviously getting digitally enabled can really help. But on the practical reality, we have to take some baby steps before we can really harness this potential. The third thing really is having a bit of a harmony between the demand and supply side, and some of the challenges that we see from education to skill set to having right kind of industry players that can actually leverage this kind of an enabling environment. So there is some work that needs to be done on this. On the sidelines, we were discussing the kind of talent and skill set that we have available in the country. And generally, as a nation, we brag about that. But the practical reality is that we need to cross-train some of our youth to ensure that we have the right skill set available to be able to scale some of these sectors of economy with the digital intervention.
Okay, so I think let's move to the next round. And as I said in the beginning, let's think of actions, and actions which should be taken tomorrow. Few of them, not 20 of them. And what should be the takeaway, or if there are government people sitting here, and I'm not just throwing it on the government only, because what we see that as overall economy, we have very less investment in digital. Whether you're talking of a private sector business, whether you're talking of a government sector organization, whether you're talking any aspect of our society, the overall investment is less, right? So what would be the immediate 1, 2, 3 actions which we should be looking at? We can just go with the sector-wise. So Rizwan, we probably can start on social sector from your side, and then we can come to the other panels.
Thanks, Ghazanfar. Now let me start off by sharing an interesting, funny story with all of you. I'm sure you have similar stories of your own. I had a friend who was heading a large organization, and one day he came home very upset. And I asked him, what's going on? He said, they're asking us to drop all paper and use email. So I said, that's very good. You won't need paper and you won't need your PA. He said, no, that's not how it works. I asked my PA to print the emails and then I look at them and approve it on paper. So having that mindset of change is very important. Otherwise, we will always find shortcuts around digitization in the government and public sector especially. So what we need to do is this agent of change has to come from the very top. We have examples in our neighboring countries where the Prime Minister themselves have asked for an all digital government solution in very challenging and short time frames. I mean, it's to the limit where they have said that I will not approve anything on paper. Our government has taken a first step. From what I hear, e-office is a file tracking system that's being pushed across, and it's been funded by the government across the public sector organization and the government. But I think we need to take further large steps and go from government to government as well as government to citizens. So what needs to be done is, I would share three concrete things. Number one, as a nation, we need to have a national broadband policy and targets. What it means is we need to assign targets that in the next 4 years, 75% of our population or 85% of our population will have access to 10 megabits per second uplink and downlink broadband. A number of nations globally have done it, and as was mentioned by my esteemed colleagues, you cannot have a digital economy without broadband. And that's a table stakes. You've got to have broadband. So a national broadband policy, and more importantly, targets are really critical. We have to set targets, whether we meet them or not, separate story, but we need to at least have a goal. Second, so by the way, before I leave this topic, where do we stand today? We've made a lot of progress. We have 3G and 4G, but some of the recent reports that have come out, one from The Economist, funded by Facebook, they have measured digital adoption across 100 countries and specifically Asia. Despite the progress we have made, we are 86th in availability. I mean, the report measures more than availability. They measure adoption, local language contact, but just in availability, we are 86th. And I had a team from Facebook come. I asked them about this report, and I said, "Why is it so? We made such a. We have 35% broadband penetration, and so we are 86th in the world. What's going on?" And actually, we are last in Asia, believe it or not, at least as from that report. And they said, other nations are moving faster than you. That's all there is to it. It's not that you have not made progress, but smaller countries like Vietnam, like Bangladesh, I mean, they've just opened up the door. They've realized broadband penetration is a national interest goal. Without it, they cannot compete. So we need to move fast. We need a national broadband policy. The second one is then we also need at a policy, because the government can just give good policy, right? Right incentives. They cannot solve the problem. They can enable others to solve the problem. The second and most important aspect would then be right of way. That means licensing costs for 3G, 4G, 5G, and fiber. To have fixed tariffs, very low cost, so that the private industry and our organization, Universal Service Fund, can drive penetration to the nook and corner of the country. You know, we talk about 5G, that's the next thing on the horizon for mobile connectivity. Nations have come to the realization that giving that spectrum and letting the economy generate the returns is a better deal than charging billions of dollars up front and cash strapping the operators or the industry who are then going to build the network. So I believe Japan has given that network for free. They've said, okay, go build the network. We don't want any money. We will get the money from the returns in the economy. Sweden is offering a low price. Even some third world countries, I mean, we need some foreign exchange too. But there's got to be a balance in 5G spectrum auction especially. So we need to facilitate by lowering the barrier to entry to 5G, 4G, and other high-speed broadband technologies. And the third thing is obviously the one that I spoke at the end, right? Ghazanfar put it right, we need to have platforms. So why can Nadra be a platform? Open up all the APIs. That's what our neighboring country India has done. They have actually they started late with their Aadhaar program and the India stack. They started late. They built the digital identity, but now they've leapfrogged us because they've opened it up and they said anybody who wants access, if I'm an insurance company, I need to look at sample population in say Sakhar, and I want to figure out what are my target audience. I can just send a programmatic message to that database and get out what's my client population. It just opens up a world of opportunity. I can do handset financing. which means poor people that cannot afford handsets can now get it financed like in other countries. So opening up national database as an asset where your economy can use it is, I would think, the third and most critical step in the process.
So Asif, I think let's do it quickly because we want to take some questions at the end as well.
Okay. I think I would say one quick thing. I think he mentioned, Rizwan sir mentioned about Nadra and other stuff. What I would say is that we just, government has to, like, whether private sector does it or government does it, doesn't matter, but how every department should have been asked to give the digital report for what they do. Once somebody start asking that question that, okay, I want to track your performance digitally, then people will start thinking that how can we produce that report through digital transformation in my department. Once it is not being asked and you start from the beginning input side, things won't change. Since it is a quick action, that's what we need to do. Every government open up for their citizens portal, and it could be thousands of services that could be exposed, that every citizen wants to interact in their daily issues or monthly, weekly, whenever you want to interact. It is available digitally to you on your mobile phone or your internet as a portal. And again, we can leverage this Nadra and other things that what is banking sector, open APIs, open banking, all of these payment gateways, and a lot of things have been done. So we just have to think simple, think new, and think quick, and make decisions that what type of services that we would like to launch tomorrow. And once somebody creates a plan, it's not a rocket science. As we discussed, it could be done in a public-private partnership. It could be done by government alone, whatever is possible, but somebody has to think about it and ask about it and start doing something from tomorrow. Because if you start adding few services and open it up, advertise it, and public and masses uses it, then it will open up and give more momentum to other departments to do the similar things. That's what we need to nurture the culture, and we have to spread that message that do whatever we can, but do it quickly.
Right. Dr. Arslan?
I think we are quite short of time, so I won't take much time. 2-3 initiatives that we are taking. I must admit that there are serious capacity issues in the government departments when it comes to digital media. Like we held a Facebook conference where representatives from Facebook came, and we had focal persons nominated from each ministry there, and most of them couldn't even make an email there. So we have the capacity issues, but we are working on it, and hopefully by the next month, every ministry will have their own social media accounts. And what they are directed is that they will be posting daily updates of authentic data, so that there isn't any confusion about it. I believe that if we public the data, the more public the data is, the more transparent the things will be. So this is one thing we are working on. And the other thing that we are actually working on is that we want to actually make the digital media industry self-sufficient. What we have observed in recent years, that there are people and there are platforms that they had been doing tremendous work, like literally original work that even most of our channels haven't done. But once they get the recognition, the mainstream media contact them, they invite them to join their channels. And since the digital media industry isn't profitable right now, so they are compelled to join them, and they lose their originality. So the basic thing that we are working on, and we have invited all of them, we are having good conversations with them, and what we are trying to do is to facilitate them in building some sort of industry where this digital media industry can flourish on its own. Like a simple challenge they are facing, talking to them, is they say that they have to rely on the secondary content. They don't have the studios, they don't have the access to government departments. So we are working on it, that at least there is a criteria that these digital platforms that fill this criteria should be given access to government meetings, to press conferences, can be facilitated to go to the areas and make some original content. Like the sports, I mean, local sports is such a huge thing which we are missing on the digital front, and India has probably done a good job there. So I think learning from the other countries is also happening, and I hope that in coming years we are going to have a good media industry, digital media
So,
industry.
Navid, 3 steps or 3 actions on digital economy.
So building on what Rizwan said, and I iterated earlier, I think we need a national broadband strategy. The government probably needs to invest in underserved areas, so through USF or any other instrument that we can make available. And external funding can also be arranged, because this is absolutely critical. This is the platform that you need to build any meaningful business. The second is a national data strategy, because without really having the kind of aggregation of data that is useful for different businesses to leverage, and then virtualizing that, anonymizing that, and making that available for cost. So this can be a profitable business, frankly, for the government, in even spaces like healthcare and education. So to me, that is the second most important step, and this has to be probably done in parallel. The third is more like a national framework on digital enablement, right? And you can come up with top 3 or 4 initiatives, and it can be sectors like education, healthcare, public safety, logistics, with a CPEC kind of initiatives. But we can build a consensus across private sector and government as to what they are, and then really going full steam after that, and making it real, because there's a lot of hype around the digital transformation. All the governments and all the technology players and the stakeholders, they have their nice PowerPoints. But as Asif said, we can get down to basics as to what are the real challenges in a particular organization or sector or ministry, and then try to solve them. And it has to be correlation between the specific subject matter knowledge and the technology scales that you can bring the table to solve the problem.
Thank you, Navid. So before going to question and answer, there is one more perspective, which is IT industry itself in terms of economy, right? And I think with the balance of payment situation we are, and the export and import situation we are, IT industry is one of the few potential industries which can bring a huge export revenues to the country. It's about talent, it's about export of those talent. And I think, Asif, if you can spend 2 minutes, because systems is one of the large exporters out of Pakistan, and you are a global story where you have created export centers all around the world, on opportunity and more importantly challenges which we are facing. Just 2 minutes, because then we have to.
Yeah, I think Ghazanfar, opportunity is immense, and as I have been sharing in multiple forums, every other sector in Pakistan can grow in percentages like 10, 15, 20%, but IT is the only sector that grow in times, right? That can grow in times, and that can change the destiny of this country. So I think demand generation is the challenge, right? I think we don't, as a Pakistan, as unfortunately, I think we are blessed with a lot of talent. We have a lot of opportunities. We have untapped potential, but we don't have the good brand and the marketing in terms of outsourcing destination, where people in North America look at us and say that, yeah, I would like to set up 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 body operations or outsourcing operation here, or outsource it here. So number one, we need to change, we need to work hard, all of us, including government, including private sector, to improve our brand, do certain marketing studies and promote our country, because until we brand our country, until we market it, nobody is going to come and increase our export. We have to tap our non-resident Pakistanis. They're very successful people out there. What Indians and other countries have done, they have tapped and they have brought the business back, on given an opportunity to local companies. So we have to do it massively, and we need to make sure that we, at a government institution, at least if there is no help, there is no restriction in terms of expansion and getting money outside of Pakistan, to make sure that we set up the operations, we bring more business to Pakistan, and it's ease of doing business. It's not like, and also from growth perspective, if a small, medium-sized industry needs to grow, they need to have some lending facility, some capital injection that is available for the growth. Because as you know, our neighbor countries, all the big industrialists, they have invested in IT sector to grow them. So IT export is immense. We can definitely grow in times. We have the talent. Supply is not an issue today. we can train people, it's a demand, and we collectively need to do the demand generation, and government has a big role to play in selling and branding Pakistan wherever they go. If they talk about technology, innovation, and outsourcing as a destination, things will change gradually. It won't happen overnight, but things will change for sure.
Do we have time for the questions?
We have run out of time, but since we are waiting for some of our panelists to arrive for the next session, we can take a couple of questions. Again, my request is please keep the questions short, so a maximum number of people can have the opportunity to ask questions. So, are there any questions? There's one in the center. Please do introduce yourself before you ask the question.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Imran Khalid. I work with SDPI. A quick question regarding moving towards 5G. So a few years back, we held an auction, perhaps earned about $1 billion from the 3G, 4G auction. What are a couple of lessons that we can take forward when thinking about the next stage? Thanks.
Rizwan, 5G.
Yeah, so I think times have changed. So 3G and 4G auctions were about revenue generation, and they did generate significant revenue for our exchequer. But as I said, for 5G, the business case for the service providers is already very challenging. They are finding it hard to deploy the technology because they need to build new base stations, new infrastructure, invest in fiber. So the thinking of regulatory authorities world over is changing as well. What they are saying now is we are going to give you spectrum at a discount, and then you make sure you deploy the technology, and when you connect a population with broadband, the returns will come to the exchequer indirectly. So one of the World Bank studies actually says that if you increase the penetration of broadband by 10%, your GDP grows by 1%. So just by doubling the broadband penetration of a nation, you can grow the GDP by a number of percentage points. So that's how governments are looking at spectrum auctions globally. In our country, I think we need to have a similar approach.
Yeah, hello.
Yep.
So I would just like to know, Wajahat Khan from ECAC. Yeah, I would like to know that when we talk about digital economy, when do we plan to go ahead with the blockchain technology in Pakistan?
Us.
I think a blockchain is, I think it's from, there are two pieces for it. Of course, it's very useful for many financial and where there is a trust element. So we are ready today as well. We just need to identify the meaningful use cases that solves a business problem where there is a trust relationship, that the trust protocol that is given by the blockchain. So in education, in healthcare, in government sector in particular, there are many use cases that we have worked along with IBM and other organizations that we can define the use cases. So blockchain, we are ready, technology is there, skill set is there, and people have done it. We, again, as I said, like when I was sharing that, how do we automate e-services and other stuff, this is the same thing that what I would like to share here is that people have done it, the countries have done it. We just not have to reinvent everything. It's already there. We just have to adopt and identify a few use cases so we can start implementing and reaping the benefit of blockchain and other technologies that is out there.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, this is not a question of when we are ready or what. We are ready.
Yeah.
It's time to take an action, right? So for example, with this government, if the biggest agenda is transparency, then blockchain is the biggest tool of transparency. It's the biggest tool of making the government transparent, right? Whatever digital systems exist there. So for example, land records are already digitized. All you need to do is add a blockchain to all land record transactions so that it cannot be modified. So it's not the question of when, it's the question of how you want to do it and when you want to start, right?
Yeah.
We are ready with that. Any other thing?
This was the last question.
So let me sum up at the end. I think wonderful conversation. We started with the social side of it, that the problems of this country, as far as healthcare, education, learning, learning outcomes and all those things are concerned, we have a huge mismatch between resources the government has and the problem we have in the country. And the biggest or the biggest intervention, the shortest path is through technology, where government can come and, prepare a platform where both sides can be matched. The second piece is about digital economy. Our future of digital economy is very, very bright, because what you see, we have 200 million plus population, huge digital native population, young population. We have seen one example. It takes years and years to build enterprises in Pakistan who can be sold at $1 billion. And Pakistani guy who created Kareem in Dubai was able to create a platform which was sold at $3 billion. If you see their install base, that's 1/3 in Pakistan's $1 billion in Pakistan's value. So if you want to leapfrog in economic outcomes, digital is the way. The platforms which we can create in Pakistan, they will have the scale to be sold in billions. It's just a matter that when we start building them. And the third piece, which Dr. Arslan has mentioned, is about giving the empowerment to youth to create the content, to create lifestyle, and create the thinking of this nation to take it forward. So if we focus in these three areas, the digital economy, the outcomes through digital means, and participation, and we start taking action now rather than building a long-term strategy and short-term strategy, we all should go back to what's the action which I will take today in my organization and push tomorrow, and what will be the outcome which I can deliver in 3 months, in few weeks, that will make the difference. Everything is available. Onus is on us. Onus is on every one of us wherever we go to make the difference.
Thank you very much, Ghazanfar. A big round of applause for the panel, please. I would like to request the panel to stay on the stage. Asif, may I please have you and Ali on the stage? I would also like to request Syed Zulfikar Abbas Bukhari, Minister of State for HRD and Overseas Pakistanis, to come onto the stage and present a token of appreciation to the panel members. Thank you. So in no particular order, Dr. Arslan Khalid. A round of applause for the panel members as they receive their books. Mr. Asif Peer. I'm sure we can do better than that. Thank you. Mr. Navid Qazi. Mr. Rizwan Mustafa Mir. Last but not the least, Ghazanfar Ali. And if you can all gather round for a group photograph now, please. If you can all gather round for a group photograph, please. Thank you very much. A round of applause once again for our panelists.